morning, everyone. Welcome to La Colaborativa. I'm Lina Tabar, and I'm proud to say that I work at a place that puts its community first. We amplify the voices of the unheard while we empower them to take action on their own. We are thrilled to see all of you here today. Your presence is a testimony to our community's strength and the commitment to housing justice. Before we dive into today's agenda, I would like to remind you that if you do not have a name tag, please go grab a name tag at our registration table. And if you are monolingual, please go ahead and use one of our translation services. We have an exciting program lined up, highlighting our victories and the important work ahead. We're honored to have several distinguished people and guests with us today. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce a dedicated advocate and respected leader of this movement. Annette Duke, an esteemed attorney specialized in tenants' rights, public housing, and court reform. Annette has authored key publications, including the one that helped me learn about housing, Legal Tactics, Tenants' Rights in Massachusetts.
Thank you, Lina. Boy, this is the best room in the house, right here. So my name is Annette Duke, and I had the honor to work with all of you in the room to get to this point where we have won an Access to Counsel pilot program. So, and what I want to do for a little while is, it's sort of like the Oscars. I would like to thank people, and I would like to tell you a little bit about this journey, because it didn't happen overnight. And it started after I was born, just to be clear. But it has long roots, which I can't really do justice. So I'm going to start in 2017, when Senator Sal DiDomenico, where's the senator? Sal, where are you? He stepped out, of course this happened. Senator Sal DiDomenico and Rep. Rogers couldn't be with us, but his Chief of Staff, Kira, is here. They filed the first Access to Counsel bill in Massachusetts. And then later, Chair Day, the chair of the Judiciary Committee, joined them as a lead sponsor. And it is their work under the dome that helped us a lot. There were many others under the dome who helped us too. But before the bill actually got filed, Russell Engler. Russell, are you in the room yet? He's probably looking for parking. And you all get stars for finding parking. Russell Engler and Jane Terrell. Jane, are you here? Not yet. They started working on a bill before 2017. They were in a back room working on the language. They had a law student working with them. There were a couple of us. And so I just want to honor who I think are the mother and father of Access to Counsel, really, is Jane and Russell. So, even though they're not here. So what happened? The bill gets filed in 2017. 4 people testified, including Russell and Mary Ryan, who is not with us, but is with us in spirit. And a few others. So it was a modest and humble group, but we began to build and we began to fill the room. So 2018, MLRI steps in the room. We were asked by Russell and Jane to work on this, but before we work on anything, we talk to the community. So my first stop was Gladys. Gladys, are you here?
Right here.
You know, we're thinking about working on Right to Counsel, what do you think? And she says, Annette! And from then on, we started. We dug in. And I also want to thank my boss, Georgia, who also started to work on this before there were words putting on a bill. She was supporting this, and I want to thank you, Georgia, for trusting me to do the work and supporting it, so thank you. So the end of the year, 2018, we pull 70 organizations and people into a room at Northeastern, and we get New York City, who had passed the first right to counsel law, here to tell us what did you do, how did you do it. And we had a pretty amazing meeting, and then after that, we, in 2019, Senator Sal, and I see Senator Eldridge is here. Welcome, Senator Eldridge. They filed the bills again, and there were 13 organizations at that moment that supported the bill. And today, we have 240 organizations that have supported it. Thanks to all of you. The Collaborative then hosted a meeting here with over 70 people where we did our favorite thing, which was Power Map. We could have put all the legislators on the board. Ellen, you were there. We talked about how to figure out inside the dome who we knew. We talked about a vision for access to counsel. It was a pretty amazing meeting. Then MLRI did what MLRI does, which is we set up an advisory committee, because we don't do this work alone. That advisory committee, and whoever was on the advisory committee, can you just raise your hand for a second? Just raise your hand boldly, boldly, boldly. Okay. These folks met monthly for years. We're talking about an 8-year campaign, which is sort of a medium-sized campaign. Some campaigns take 20 years, you know. It doesn't happen overnight. But these folks met monthly, and it was your staying power and your collective vision that actually won the day here. Again, it's never one person. And what the advisory committee did right off the bat, which I would recommend for any campaign, and again, Ellen, I'm sorry, you taught me this, which is have some guiding principles. And those guiding principles were, and I want to keep them alive for this room, was that access to counsel would focus on full representation. We're not talking lawyer for a day, we're not talking lawyer for an hour, or lawyer for 5 minutes. We're talking full representation. Access to counsel would prevent homelessness and stop unjust evictions, that it would instill fairness into a system which is not fair, because 90% of the tenants are unrepresented and 90% of the landlords are represented. And that's what it sought to change. The other principle was that we need community engagement. Look at this. We have it, we've had it from the beginning, and we need it throughout the whole program. And that we would work with existing organizations, like GBLS is in the room, Metro West is in the room, to carry this off. You guys are on the front lines. And now we actually get to start the work. This is the gift. But also, I'm actually still in, I think, 2019. I'll speed it up. But in 2019, municipalities also stepped in. We got resolutions from Springfield, Cambridge, Northampton, Boston. We got 2 from Boston. Salem. Salem's in the room. Laura Lee, thank you. And again, Boston passed one twice. Then the Metropolitan Mayors Coalition, I'm sorry, Ellen, again, helped with that. The Metropolitan Mayors Coalition with Somerville Mayor Curtatone and former Chelsea City Mayor Tom Ambrosino with 15 other city mayors and managers signed a letter supporting access to counsel. That was huge. We've also had offices of housing stability. Laura Lee from Salem, Ellen from Somerville, and where's Danielle? Danielle from Boston. Oh, and there's Sheila! I just have to tell a slight little story. When we started the advisory committee, I did not invite Sheila to join in. And she called me, and she was very upset with me. And I said, of course, Sheila. Come on. So municipalities started. Okay, I'm on 2020. So you know what happens in 2020, COVID hits. And we had to pivot. And Sal, Senator Sal said, all right, let's do another bill, a COVID pilot bill. We pushed on that. Nothing was really happening. But then, in June, the Boston Bar Association with J.D. Smealy, J.D., you want to raise your hand? He helped get a report out that said there's massive cost savings if we do this. So we got that report out, and then in August we made a big push with the faith community, with municipalities, with over 100 healthcare providers who wrote to Governor Baker and said, you have to do something. You're getting federal dollars. You need to do something now. And he did. He actually put a lot of money into what was called the COVID Eviction Legal Help Project, which Mass Legal Assistance Corporation, Lynn Parker is here, myself, legal services, we all stepped up and started to do this emergency project where we hired 134 attorneys and paralegals in like 2 months. Not the way to do it, and not the way we're going to do access to counsel. But we had to, and it was temporary. So 2021, I'm getting there. In 2021, we pivoted again. We looked at the bill, we tweaked it, we said, okay, Mass Legal Assistance Corporation, they should be the fiscal conduit, and there must be a dedicated line item. Those words were really important because, folks, that's what we got this year. That's what we got. In the meantime, all of you testified. We filled the room. It wasn't 4 people, it was 22 people in the room. It was 22 more people who submitted written testimony. We were meeting with everyone. The Progressive Caucus made this its priority. Unfortunately, in 2021, the bills did not make it out of committee. But shortly after that, we brought on Leah Marino. Leah, where are you? Raise your hand. Sorry. So there she is, Leah. Leah came on because I was working on Kelp, and Leah used that time to build. She continued to build the coalition. Then I'm going to skip to 2023. You'll be glad I skipped the whole year. Of course, we are undeterred. Persistence and collective action is what is driving this. Our lead sponsors, thank you again, Senator Sal, Rep. Rogers, Rep. Day. Rep. Day, are you here yet? Not yet. Okay, he'll be here soon. They refiled the bill. This time we had 63 co-sponsors. We upped the game again. We also brought in Kate Worrell to help us from Charles Group, who helped us navigate in so many ways. And again, last year, 2023, we testified before the Judiciary Committee, we testified before the Housing Committee, we actually testified before the Housing Committee twice because they had a bond bill. And everyone kept showing up, and it was amazing. That was a lot of persistence on your part, and I was grateful. And many, the Boston Bar, League of Women Voters, AARP, JALSA's in the room, Cindy Rowe, where are you? There you are. Mass Union, where are you? Tenants, Sarah, excellent. You all stood there, you were there for 11 hours, we'll never forget that, right? But in 2023, we had a new voice in the room, and that was Attorney General Andrea Campbell, and that was pretty amazing. And actually, you'll see the slideshow. Renee Spencer, who was a tenant, also testified. It's a beautiful picture with A.G. Campbell, and her voice was so critical to moving this, and again, we were grateful. Then, we're still in 2023, because every day we were living this, honestly. The Collaborative brought 20 people up to the State House. Remember that, Nuria Lees? And you delivered a letter to the governor saying, on behalf of the coalition, we want you to put this in the budget. And we tweeted, we did press work. Is Trevor here? Trevor, are you in the room? Trevor from Wynn Companies. So it was an unusual coalition because we had tenants and large property owners. That made this coalition a little bit unusual, and Trevor was from Wynn, and he and I authored an article together. It was one of many press articles. And at the end of the year, we sent the governor another letter saying, can you put some money in the budget? All right, I'm on 2024. And this time, it worked. On January 25th, we got some big news that the governor released her FY25 budget and had a dedicated line item, just like the bill called for, on access to counsel for $3.5 million. This was a huge moment. So thank you, Governor. Thank you, everyone. Scott Reed, also General Counsel for the Governor. So we really appreciate the Governor stepping out on this. That was a game changer for us. April, we got more good news. Access to Counsel was in House Ways and Means budget thanks to Chair Michaelwitz and all the work that Chair Day and Chair Rogers have been doing to move this in the House. And so it got into the budget. We didn't have to make it file an amendment, which was actually very good because amendments are a lot of work. What was really amazing was that Chair Michaelwitz, Chair Day, and Chair Rogers all took the floor for the debate and all talked about access to counsel. And I have never heard that in my life, and it was just a great moment, and I thank them for lifting it up on the floor. And I also want to thank Sheila Dillon for getting us in the room with Chair Michaelwitz, another game changer. There were more game changers in this battle than one can imagine. Meanwhile, on the Senate side, Betsy Soleil, Betsy, raise your hand, was working on the Senate side, Senator Spilka. That's Betsy's home court, about the need, and Mass Union was at the State House and had a very important meeting with the Chair of Senate Ways and Means, Chair Rodrigues, where Chair Rodrigues, for the first time, sort of indicated that, okay, you know, this could happen. So we were getting hopeful. It wasn't in the Senate budget, but it survived what's called conference, where the Senate and the House reconciled the differences, and we won access to counsel. What date was it? July 29th. Yes! So we got access to counsel pilot over the finish line. That is no small feat in a tough budget year to get a new dedicated line item. And I just really want to thank everyone in this room. I have not been able to recognize all of you. You've all done something in one way or another. And the fight is going to go on. We're going to talk about that soon. But strong move to the hoop, everyone. Strong move to the hoop. So I'd like to turn this over now to Gladys Vega, Executive Director of La Colaborativa, and George Katsoulianis, to come up, the Executive Director of Mass Law Reform. Before I do, I just want to give a quick thank you to the Collaborative for this amazing setup and space, so that we can pause and celebrate, which we don't get to do too often. And it's really beautiful. And then the other people I want to thank is my own team. Maddie, Charlotte, Miranda, Mackenzie, Anna, and Karina, for all the work you've done to get us to this moment too. And then at some point, I promise lunch. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to these beautiful people.
Buenos días, bienvenidos a la Colaborativa. Mi nombre es Gladys Vega, la presidenta de la organización. Es un placer tener un momento tan importante para celebrar, ya que esta propuesta de ley va a permitir que los inquilinos tengan abogados en las cortes cuando los están desalojando. Esto es completamente un cambio grandísimo y por eso hay que celebrar. So real quickly, I am privileged to be surrounded by so many local friends, our City Council, President Norielis de Jesus, our City Manager Fidel, our City Solicitor Cheryl, Almi, our School Superintendent, our Chief of Police Chief of Police Holden with Captain Dunn and Captain McLean, who's also in the room. I want to also acknowledge Kevin, our District Attorney Kevin Hayden. We just finished a meeting with him and his team. His Chief Assistant, I'm not going to kill his name, Joe, who's also here. I also want to acknowledge Tanairi Garcia, City Council, Roberto Jimenez, also City Council. Our President of the Board, Detective Rosalba Medina, who's also here. Our friends from CAPIC and GBLS, who are constantly helping us every time we need a letter of support. Today present, they help us mobilize. Our friends from the Chelsea Community Cable, muchísimas gracias por estar aquí. I must acknowledge that today is a very special day also because we have none other also than Mara Hillis, General Counsel in the House, Ms. Kay. La señora que acabo de presentar es la mera abogada de la gobernadora, so estamos en buena compañía con policías y abogados. So we have lots of lawyers and lots of law enforcement, so we're a safe group, okay? And then, of course, I will be remiss if I don't mention to every member of the Access to Counsel Coalition, every person that made this happen. This was years of working on this campaign. This was years of going to the State House. And without all of you sort of like putting on the pressure, we wouldn't have made it possible. And I always say that La Colaborativa is a small nonprofit organization in Chelsea. When we get together with powerful people, coalition people, we make things happen for the greater of the good, right? For the greater good. And that's what. Y por supuesto tengo que agradecer a mis empleados que estuvieron aquí hasta las 9:30 anoche y a las 5 de la mañana ya estábamos aquí. To my staff who were here at 9 o'clock until 9 o'clock last night. And at 5 o'clock this morning, we were already on the road. So muchísimas gracias por todo esto, for making this beautiful space. And I have to mention that when you walk into, for those of you that walk into La Colaborativa, to the new space, you always tell me, oh my God, Gladys, this space is beautiful, this space is incredible, we didn't know that it was like this. And as I always talk to my partner in crime, Dini Paulino, that when Dini and I designed the space, it's because our community members, we could be poor, but we don't deserve any less. We deserve the best, and this is why we put this location as beautiful. And now I have the honor, de verdad, de decirte gracias a mi querido amigo en crimen, a un hombre que yo no lo dejaba quieta durante la pandemia, que hablábamos por lo menos 6 veces al día o 6 veces en la semana, hasta yo lloraba con él. So I have to talk about this incredible individual that we've been friends since 2010, and throughout many of our campaigns, and especially during the pandemic, I probably talked to him at times 6 times during one day, or at times 6 times during the week, depending on the needs that we have. And this person is my senator, Sal Di Domenico. If there's an individual that we have to be grateful for the Access to Counsel bill, for this moment that we're celebrating today, is Sal Di Domenico. He goes to that State House with boots on the ground. He knows what all of you residents of Chelsea need, and he's the one moving and shaking inside to make sure that this happens. Nuestro senador, que es Sal Di Domenico, muchos de ustedes han ido a la oficina de él y se han tomado retratos. Él es el que mueve las cosas. Cada vez que nosotros tenemos una necesidad, senador Sal Di Domenico es el que responde a nuestro llamado, a nuestro grito. Y es por eso que estamos hoy celebrando. Yo te digo, Sal, if I was to count all the favors that I owe you, I would need my lifetime, and I'm up there. I'm getting that high up there. So, de verdad es un placer. We are honored of everything you have done with Access to Counsel. You're not afraid of sort of like going beyond the call of duty, and that is why we appreciate you. That is why we love you. That is why we cherish these type of celebrations with you, because I would never imagine having a senator like yourself. I mean, he had to be a guy from Chelsea because that's where he was raised, ¿sabes? Pero una de las cosas que le quiero decir, que en mi vida yo me imaginé que en la política yo iba a tener una persona tan dedicada y uno de estos políticos que los eligen y se olvidan de nosotros. Nuestro senador, él hace las cosas que sucedan. Cada vez que nosotros tenemos una preocupación, él responde. Y hoy me da un orgullo presentarte, decirte que te vengas aquí al lado mío. Come with me right next to me. Este es el hombre que hace todo posible para nosotros. Muchísimas gracias.
Good afternoon, everyone. What a happy day, what a happy celebration. It's an impossible task to follow Gladys Vega, but she's one of my heroes, my shero. We have worked very closely with Gladys and La Colaborativa on so many legislative campaigns and housing justice initiatives, and it is always a pleasure to work with you and your team. So I just want to say thank you for all the great work you're doing for the community. So I want to thank State Rep Mike Day, who I think is here. Please come up to the stage. And I also want to thank State Rep Dave Rogers, who is unable to be with us today, but whose Chief of Staff, Kira Arnott, is with us for all of their years of work to help shepherd access to counsel. So we had a substantial victory this year and a big step forward, but we're not done. There's still more work to do. This is a very major step. It's a victory for housing justice, and it's a victory for fairness for all tenants. So I just want to thank you. I have a special gift that I'm giving out, and let me just say this is the only red hat I will wear.
Me too. Thank you very much.
One for you, and one for me. Here we go. Rep Day, when you and Rep Rogers took the floor of the House during the FY25 budget debate and lifted up access to counsel, as Annette said, this was really a turning point for the campaign. So we really want to thank you, and of course Chair Michaelowicz as well. This was a huge endeavor and a huge victory, and we could not have done it without all you, the two of you, and Rep Rogers. So we just want to say thank you again. And we look forward to working with all of you to get the bill over the finish line and to hold on to the budget line item. So now, more people I want to thank. First of all, I would be remiss, the awesome Annette Duke. If Jane Terrell and Russell Engler are the mother and father of access to counsel, Annette is the midwife. And I also want to ask all the members of the Access to Counsel Advisory Committee to please stand up and remain standing. And I encourage you all to give them a big round of applause. This was a tremendous movement. It took 7 years, and it took a village of people, and it's only the beginning. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Senator DiDomenico and Rep Day to make some remarks.
Hello, everyone. It's a great, great day for all of us. Great day for all the folks that have been working to make this happen. But an even greater day for the people who deserve this representation. They deserve this. And I'm a little sad that we had to change the name to Access, because it should be a right. It should be a right. And I first just want to say, thank you to Gladys. Gladys, I'm going to bring her on the road with me. I want the introduction every time I get up to speak. And, I joke, and it's somewhat true. I haven't had an opponent in 14 years. And I say they're not afraid of me. You know where I'm going, right? They're not afraid of me. They're afraid of people like Gladys, who are on my team. And I say I haven't had an opponent in 14 years because of two simple words. Yes, Gladys. Yes, Gladys. is no surprise that such a monumental piece of legislation that was put into effect has her hands on it, and has La Colaborativa's hands on it. Mass law reform. And our leader, Annette Duke, who has been in the trenches from the very, very beginning as well. You know, this was not easy to happen. This was not an easy bill. This language was, as you heard, put up and changed a couple times as time went on because we wanted to make it more palatable for folks. And to be quite honest, we had some people outside the building who were against this. And I say building State House. And we had some people inside the State House who were against it. And it happened because of the persistence and the advocacy and the work and the time, energy, resources, and commitment that people in this room and outside this room put into this effort to make it happen for all of our residents across our state who deserve this access to counsel. And without your efforts, and any time along this process, you could have given up. Because there were so many roadblocks put in front of us. You know, during the pandemic, when we did the pilot, and I want to give a shout out to Martina Mata, my former legislative director, who worked so hard on this, and my chief of staff, Christy Young, who has been with me for 14 years, is like a partner to me on this effort. You cannot do this without good staff who not just do the work, but have it in their heart. Have it in their heart to make meaningful change in our community. Take these issues not just to work with them, but to home with them as well. And that's why I'm so proud to stand here with my counterparts, Mike Day and Rep. Rogers and his team, and they both their teams, and everyone standing behind me, and people sitting down in front of me, and some people outside this building who worked so hard on this to make this happen, because this is really a really special day. A special day. And I always say this when I talk about people who need help in the State House and people living in poverty, food insecurity, housing crisis. The people that we're working for largely don't have time to come advocate for themselves because they're trying to survive. They're working 2 or 3 jobs supporting their families. They don't have the time, energy, and sometimes trust in government to make changes that are going to be beneficial to them and themselves and their families. So they kind of just do their thing and kind of wonder, is government really working for us at some point? Today, days like today, show that government is working for people who need it the most. That advocates working to make meaningful change can have an impact at the State House. And the people that are going to benefit from this can now wake up and say, somebody is working for us.
Right.
They don't know our name and faces, but they know somebody actually cared.
That's right.
That somebody actually cared to make change that's going to benefit them and their family. So thank you very much for all that you do. I am proud to be part of this effort. This is just the beginning, though.
That's right.
We are celebrating today, but we want to have bigger celebrations in the future. Because the more resources we put into this effort, the more people we can help. And people deserve it. Right to access, a right to counsel, not access. This is a right for people who live in our communities across the Commonwealth. Access, representation, stay in their homes, and solve the housing crisis once and for all. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. You're going to see the difference between the House and the Senate now because I'm going to be exceedingly brief. I am here just to say thank you. Gladys, for making the space, beautiful space, available today, and then for all the work you've done, and for everyone out here who did the work necessary to get this over the finish line. Thank you. Dave Rogers, Rep. Rogers, and I led the effort in the House, Senator DiDomenico, and I see my colleague and friend, Senator Eldridge, out there as well, who was my co-chair of the Judiciary Committee. We had this bill a few times in session. We were able to move it forward, working collaboratively together. So thank you, Jamie, as well. And we'd be remiss if we didn't thank the administration. Kay Cook, I see from Governor Healy's office as well. Thank you for your work in the administration. Kate and I go back many years through the Bar Association. And my staff, who I'll recognize, Talia Quinn and Patrick Prendergast, did tremendous work here. Dug up this archive from my folders, and it's from my old job, and back in 2006, I started working on right to counsel. Not limited to housing, civil right to counsel. And I see Gabby Wolf from the ACLU here as well. He and I have worked closely on this for many, many years. So this is a terrific start, as Senator DiDomenico said. And as Gladys said, it takes a long time to get this stuff done. It is a huge, huge accomplishment for everyone out here right now. This doesn't just impact Chelsea, Everett, Stoneham. This impacts the entire Commonwealth. We know there's a housing crisis going on. We know the disparity between landlord representation and tenant representation. And we know the work it took to get this through the non-believers in the House and the Senate. And so with this coalition you put together and worked so hard on, I see Kit Worrell as well out here, to get this over the finish line is a huge accomplishment. And as Sal said, just the beginning of the work that we're doing. We've got a good start, a good pilot program. And once we get that pilot up and running, we kick the doors down and keep that thing moving and expanding. Thank you all sincerely for the work you're doing and the work we're all going to continue to do together. Take care.
Picture time. Where do you want the picture? I told you it's like the Oscars. So it is my pleasure to introduce one of my partners in crime, Renee Spencer, who's a tenant from Wellesley, who testified so many times, I can't even tell you. And for Renee, she's going to tell you that this is pretty personal for her. She's a tenant, and I'm going to let Renee tell you her story, but also what the impact is going to be. And Renee, thank you for everything.
Hi, good afternoon. As you know, my name is Renee Spencer. I'm a public housing resident in Wellesley. And how did I get into Access to Counsel? This is very personal for me. I faced eviction for a small amount of money. I went to district court all by myself with cash in hand to start to pay back the rent. 3 times the judge urged the Housing Authority's lawyer to come to an agreement with a payment plan, because at that time I was a 32-year tenant at the Housing Authority with no issues. But the lawyer refused because the Housing Authority wanted me out because I was an activist. And the Housing Authority actually labeled me a troublemaker because I would advocate for the residents. Good job. So I packed my bags, put everything in my car. For 2 years I was homeless. I went from house to house and slept on people's couches. During the time, I pulled out of all my public service work because I was humiliated. Then I was lucky. I fought and I got back into public housing, and I started to work with Mass Union. I was on their board, and tenants started calling me again for help. Then I started helping them. Then I started to testify with my partner here at the State House for Access to Counsel, and joined the Access to Counsel Advisory Committee. When I testified before Senator Keenan, Rep. Day, Senator Edwards, and my favorite senator who's in the place, Senator Jamie Eldridge, I continued to advocate because I felt they were all listening to me. That gave me hope. And this year, thanks to Lori Stewart, who is with the League of Women Voters, I did a webinar for all the League members about what they could do to support Access to Counsel. And I am also a member of the Wellesley League of Women Voters. What I learned was that a lot of League members related to what I was saying, because some had also faced eviction, and it can be very embarrassing to talk about. I really want to thank Lori for all of her work to get the league's voice to the State House on this. Access to counsel is important. My hope is that families do not lose their homes like I did. My hope is that together we can build a statewide access to counsel program in a steady way that will make it strong. I want to thank all the tenants in the room for being here today. Your voices do matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee, and thank you everyone for sharing your insights. These narratives fuel our fight. I would like to highlight my colleague, Norielis de Jesus, who has dedicated 13 years of community organizing and advocacy. She's now an elected official, but she rises from... She rises from youth organizer to director of youth here at La Colaborativa. Her impactful work includes passing crucial legislation for affordable housing and supporting grassroots movements in all Massachusetts. Norielis, come to the stage.
Buenas tardes, good afternoon. Cuando peleamos, ganamos. When we fight, we win. Yes, yes. That has been probably part of my life for the past 18 years. Just a few years ago, I got to pass it on to Lena, and she's doing an amazing job as an organizer here at La Colaborativa. But to start off, yes, many of you guys know I wear a lot of hats in Chelsea. As the Chelsea City Council President, as the director of the youth department here, but one of the hats that I love the most that I've been able to share with both Annette and Gladys is my housing organizing hat. And I'm going to share with you guys a little bit about, what brought me to Access to Counsel, what inspired this passion for housing organizing. So, I was born here, just around the corner in front of St. Rose. My mom was renting an apartment. And when I was born, I came straight to the city of Chelsea. A little bit after that, I was in the island of Puerto Rico. Came back when I was 6 years old, didn't know any English, and immediately connected to the immigrant community that was also here and not connecting to the culture, connecting to the fact that they're no longer seeing horses, just, walking around, or chickens and hens and all of that. And so that was a deep part of my passion. But growing up in Chelsea, I moved probably 8 times before the age of 12. That was 8 times as a young child that I was uprooting and moving to another corner of Chelsea, and moving again and again and again. But it wasn't until I was 14 that I got here. Many of you guys already know how I got here, hired against my will, thanks to Gladys Vega. But it wasn't until I got here that I understood that that was not normal. That a child should not be moving 8 times. That's probably once a year, once every 2 years, and it happens, my friends, it happens still today, even more today. It was happening back then when my mom was a single mom, right, paying maybe $500 of rent, insane, right? It's happening today. The conversations we were having this morning with our partners in law enforcement and our city officials is connected to that, right? It's connected to how we need to see this as a crisis across. Housing is a fundamental part of a young person's life, right? And so the power that we have here among organizers, among attorneys, among state officials, city officials, is huge. It's huge because among this crowd, you also see the tenants and the faces that were up at the State House mobilizing and telling their stories. And that's the beautiful part that Georgina and Gladys have is combining that and having that partnership so that we can make sure that it's not just a number and statistics, but it's a real life story that we're telling, right? And it's the realities. And I tell you, it didn't get any more real or vivid until COVID hit. When Gladys and I were out in the field with the team, because it's not just a two-person show, this is a whole community effort. And all the staff here that have knocked on doors to mobilize people, it's because of you that we are here today. But it didn't get so vivid until COVID, because why? Because then Gladys and I were able to carry around our phones and still join those Zoom calls. I remember clearly Annette Duke reached out and said, we have all the judges in Massachusetts on one Zoom call. Gladys and Norielis, I need you guys. And we're like down the street at this warehouse that TND was letting us use for food distribution and everything else, the chaos of COVID, right? And we got a call, right? We were preparing that week for what are we going to say? What is the data we're showing? And then everything changed probably like an hour or two before the meeting. I said, Annette, plans have changed, but don't worry, we will be on the screen. And when we turned on the camera, Gladys and I are wearing trash bags. We're literally covered in trash bags. There's furniture moving behind us. There's a bird chirping in that corner. There's children and families. And we thought, this is crazy, but we need to show what we're seeing on a daily basis. What we're seeing under a moratorium of evictions. What we're seeing in the community where the courts don't often capture the numbers, or our families don't often walk in, and when they do walk in, they're walking in with traumas and fears that other people may not understand. And I immediately looked at Annette in the Zoom meeting, and she's like, okay, they're on. Doesn't matter as long as they're on. But that's the magic that you guys create. Having these two organizations work together to expose the realities and not just focus on the data, but focus on the stories and focus on the realities. I'll just share two stories and then I'll pass the mic out. But another situation, I don't know if my sister counselor Tanaidi is here. Tani? She's Tanaidi? She's out, okay. So Tanaidi and I, during the pandemic, were out and about supporting families and coming across a lot of different stories. And we came across this family, a beautiful family, who had fled from Puerto Rico due to the hurricane. And this family was living here and got evicted for no fault of their own. And, you know, in the midst of all the stress and everything, they were, you know, desperately looking to, what are we going to do? They ended up going online and finding an ambulance that was affordable for them to purchase and turn into a home. And so this family with children enrolled in Chelsea schools moved into this ambulance thinking, well, this will be our stepping stone to an actual apartment, an actual home that we can provide for our children. And that quickly changed when they were found living in the ambulance, right? Law enforcement came in, said this is not safe for you and it's not safe for your children. And they quickly brought them over to La Colaborativa. When we stepped in, our team on the ground with wraparound services and taking into account the mental health, the food sustainability, income, right? Everything that this family is dealing with, all the traumas and everything, we help them get into a unit. But this is just one example of many that we still have today. And that is why this work is so important. The other story is of a young girl who I worked with, who was actually in many meetings with Annette. She helped us draft and redraft in the coalition work that we were doing, draft and redraft again this bill. 8 years of drafting, right? And she was very key in making sure that the youth voice and her personal experiences as a young girl sleeping in a 24-hour laundromat, attending La Colaborativa's youth department year-round employment program, and advocating for housing were included. She knew from her personal experiences at the moment how hard it was for someone who had a eviction record, how hard it was for this person to get back on their feet. And when we think about the work that we're doing, when we think about the celebrations that we're here for, we need to think about these stories and what this young girl feels now knowing that we did it, right? And so I just wanted to share some of those stories. I think that today we're here to honor these victories and to honor those leaders at the state level, the coalition members that really got this through. Whether we were coming on with really sad faces or coming online with really happy faces or strategizing behind the scenes. But more than that, we're here to remember these stories that brought us here. And the stories of our youth, the stories of their parents, the stories of community members like the ones we have here in Chelsea and across the state. This journey hasn't been easy, but it's been worth every step of the way, and I would do it over and over again with each and every one of you. Thank you so much.
So I promise you lunch is very soon. But we have some important business to talk about, which is what's next. And I would like Lynn Parker to join me on the stage for just a couple of minutes. So what's next? So we've got a dedicated line item. We've got to hold on to it. We also have bills, which actually reached a high watermark this year. The bill in Judiciary was reported out of the Judiciary Committee. Thanks again to Senator Eldridge, and I see his Chief of Staff, David Emmer. Thank you, David, for coming. And of course, Chair Day went to House Ways and Means. The Senate bill, Sal's bill, went to Senate Ways and Means, actually after the formal session ended, which was sort of remarkable. So we've got these bills. These bills are important because they would provide a permanent program. It's not a pilot, it's a permanent program. And they would require the court to do things, which the line item doesn't. They provide that implementation would be phased in smartly, because we learned you can't do it in one day. And they provide the framework for something that we need. So we are not going to give up on the bill. We're happy that our lead sponsors are going to turn around and file it again, and we will be up at the State House fighting for that and the line item. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Lynn Parker, Executive Director of the Mass Legal Assistance Corporation, who is charged with running the pilot, being the fiscal conduit for the pilot. So Lynn, we're really happy about that. Where are you?
I'm not going to speak for very long. I just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity to be with you here today and to share my recognition of the enormous, tremendous efforts that so many of you engaged in for so many years to advocate for and support access to counsel. You know, we all know that it was an enormous shared effort over so many years by so many people and so many organizations across the Commonwealth. I'm personally so pleased that access to counsel was endorsed by both the legislature and the governor. It wouldn't have happened without the enormous efforts by legislative leaders that are here today, as well as everybody that's here in the room and beyond. I'm also just, really excited about the impact that this is going to have on folks that are struggling across the state, and their ability to retain housing will be dependent on this funding. So as we move forward, I'm also honored that MLRI was selected to get this pilot program underway. And we are going to be moving into, we're implementing, creating a project and a process for doing this in a thoughtful way. We'll be identifying legal aid nonprofit organizations across the state who can do this work, who can represent tenants and owner-occupant landlords to make sure that people are able to retain their housing and not be evicted. So again, I'm just personally so excited about this project. I'm so excited about what it means for the future, and I'm really excited about your tremendous efforts and being able to work with you collaboratively in the future. So thanks again.
Thank you so much. As we wrap up for this part of the program, I encourage everyone to sign up for the Access to Counsel alert list. It's crucial that we keep being engaged with this campaign. Also, don't forget to sign the thank you cards for the governor and for the Attorney General. But the most important question here is, why do we need access to counsel?
To prevent unfair evictions.
Why do we need access to counsel?
To make the court process fair.
What do you all think that we need access to counsel for? It's okay, you don't have to answer.
We need more lawyers in our corners.
I like this guy.
So once you finish writing your cards, please come up and establish why you personally think we need access to counsel. This concludes this segment of our program. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for helping us create the impact our community deserves to be created, which is positive impact. Now